Dracula, Part 9, July 19th. We are progressing. My friend has now a whole colony of sparrows, and his flies and spiders are almost obliterated. When I came in, he ran to me and said he wanted to ask me a great favor, a very, very great favor, and as he spoke, he fawned on me like a dog. I asked him what it was, and he said with a sort of rapture in his voice and bearing, a kitten, a nice little sleek, playful kitten that I can play with and teach and feed and feed and feed. I was not unprepared for his request, for I noticed how his pets went on increasing in size. But I did not care that his pretty family of tame sparrows should be wiped out in the same manner as the flies and the spiders, so I said I would see about it, and asked him if he would not rather have a cat than a kitten. His eagerness betrayed him as he answered, "Oh, yes, I would like a cat. I only asked for a kitten, least you refuse me a cat. No one would refuse me a kitten, would he?" I shook my head and said that at present I feared it would not be possible, but that I would see about it. His face fell, and I could see a warning of danger in it, for there was a sudden fierce sideline look which meant killing. The man is an underdeveloped homicidal maniac. I shall test him with his present cravings and see how long it will work out. Then I shall know more. 10 p.m. I have visited him again and found him sitting in a corner brooding. When I came in, he threw himself at his knees before me and implored me to let him have a cat, that his salvation depended upon it. I was firm, however, and told him that he could not have it, whereupon he went without a word and sat down, gnawing his fingers in the corner where I had found him. I shall see him in the morning early. July 20th. Visited Renfield very early before the attendant went his rounds. Found him up and humming a tune. He was spreading out his sugar, which he saved in the window, and was manifestly beginning his fly catching again, and beginning it cheerfully and with good grace. I looked at him for his birds, and not seeing them, asked him where they were. He replied, without turning round, that they had all flown away. There were feathers around the room, and on the pillow a drop of blood. I said nothing, but went and told the keeper to report to me if there were anything odd about him during the day. 11 a.m. The attendant had just been to me to say that Renfield had been very sick and has disengorged a whole lot of feathers. My belief is, doctor, he said, that he has eaten his birds and that he just took and ate them raw. 11 p.m. I gave Renfield a strong opiate tonight, enough to make him sleep, and took away his pocketbook to look at it. The thought that had been buzzing around my brain lately is complete, and the theory proved. My homicidal maniac is now of a peculiar kind. I shall have to invent a new classification for him and call him a life eating maniac. When he desires is to absorb as many lives as he can, and he has laid himself out to achieve it in a cumulative way. He gave many flies to one spider and many spiders to one bird, and then wanted a cat to eat many birds. What would have been his later steps? It would have been almost worth while completing the experiment. It might be done if there were only a significant cause. Men sneered and yet looked at his results today. Why not advance science in its most difficult and vital aspect, the knowledge of the brain? Had I ever Had I even the secret of one such mind, did I hold the key to the fancy of even one lunatic, I might advance my own branch of science to a pitch compared with Burton Sanderson psychology or Ferreira brain knowledge would be as nothing, if only there were a sufficient cause. I must not think too much of this, or I may be tempted. A good cause might turn the scale for me, for may not I too be one of the exceptional brain congeniality? How well the man reasoned lunatics away, do within their own scope. I wonder at how many lives he values a man, or if at only one. He has closed the account most accurately, and today began a new record. How many of us began a new record with each day of our lives? To me, it seems only yesterday that my whole life ended with my new hope, and that truly I began a new record. So it will be until the great recorder summons me up and closes my ledger account with a balance to profit or loss. Oh, Lucy, Lucy, I cannot be angry with you, nor can I be angry with my friend, whose happiness is yours. But I must only wait on hopelessness and work, work, work. If I could not have a strong case as my poor mad friend, there a good unselfish cause to make me work, that would be indeed happiness. Mina Mura's Journal, July 26th. I am anxious, and it soothes me to express myself here. It is like whispering to one's self and listening at the same time. And there is also something about the shorthand symbols that makes it different from writing. I am unhappy about Lucy and about Jonathan. I have not heard from Jonathan for some time and am very concerned. But yesterday, dear Mr. Hawkins, who is already so kind, sent me a letter from him. I had written asking him if he had heard, and he said the enclosed had just been received. It was only a line dated from Castle Dracula, and says that he is just starting for home. This is not like Jonathan. I do not understand it, and it makes me uneasy. Then, too, Lucy, although she is so well, and lately taken to her old habit of walking in her sleep, her mother has spoken to me about it, and we have decided that I am to lock the door of our room every night. Miss Westenero has gotten an idea that sleepwalkers always go out on roofs of houses and along the edges of cliffs, and that then suddenly wakened and fall off with a despairing cry. The echoes all over the place. Poor dear, she is naturally anxious about Lucy, and she tells me that her husband, Lucy's father, had the same habit, that he would get up at night and dress himself and go out as if he were not stopped. Lucy is to be married in the autumn, and she is already planning out her dresses and how her house is to be arranged. I sympathize with her, for I do the same, only Jonathan and I will start in life in a very simple way, and I shall have to try to make both ends meet. Mr. Holmwood, he is in Hon Arthur Holmwood, only son of Lord Godalming, is coming up here very shortly, as soon as he can leave town, for his father is not very well, and I think dear Lucy is counting the moments till he comes. She wants to take him up to the seat of the churchyard cliff and show him the beauty of Whitby. I dare say it is in the waiting which disturbs her, and she will be all right when he arrives. July 27th. No news from Jonathan. I am getting quite uneasy about him, though why should I do not know, but I do wish that he would write. If it were only a single line. Lucy walks more than ever, and each night I am awakened by her moving about the room. Fortunately, the weather is so hot that she cannot get cold, but the anxiety, and perpetually being wakened is beginning to tell on me. I am getting nervous and wakeful myself. Thank God Lucy's health keeps up. Mr. Holmwood has been suddenly called to ring to see his father, who has been taken seriously ill. Lucy frets all the postponement of seeing him, but it does not touch her looks. She is a trifle stouter, and her cheeks are a lovely rose pink. She has lost that anemic look which she had. I pray it will last. August 3rd. Another week and no news from Jonathan, not even to Mr. Hawkins, from whom I have heard. Oh, I do hope he is not ill. He surely would have written. I took the last letter of his, but somehow it does not satisfy me. It does not read like him, and yet it is his writing. There is no mistake of that. Lucy has not walked much in her sleep the last week, but there is an odd concentration about her which I do not understand. Even in her sleep, she seems to be watching me. She tries the door, and finding it locked, goes about the room searching for the key. August 6th. Another 3 days and no news. The suspense is getting dreadful. If only I knew where to write to or where to go to, I shall feel easier. But no one has heard a word of Jonathan since the last letter. I must only pray to God for his patience. Lucy is more excitable than ever, but is otherwise well. Last night was very threatening, and the fishermen say that we are in for a storm. I must try to watch it and learn the weather signs. Today is a gray day, and the sun, as I write, is hidden in the thick clouds high over Kettleness. Everything is gray except the green grass, which seems like emerald among its gray earthy rock. Gray clouds, tinged with a sunburst at the far edge, hang over the gray sea, into which the sand points stretch like gray fingers. The sea is tumbling in over the shallows and the sandy flats, and the roar muffled in a sea mist drifting inland. The horizon is lost in a gray mist. All the vastness, the clouds are piled up like giant rocks, and there is a brool over the sea that sounds like some presence of doom. Dark figures are on the beach, here and there, sometimes half shrouded in mist, and seem men like tree walking. The fishing boats are racing for home, and rise and dip in the ground swell as they sweep into the harbor, bending into the scoopers. Here comes old Mr. Swallows. He is making straight for me, and I can see by the way he lifts his hat that he wants to talk. I have been quite touched by the change in the poor old man. When he sat down beside me, he said in a very gentle way, I want to say something to you, miss. I could see he was not at ease, so I took his poor old wrinkled hand in mine and asked him to speak fully. So he said, leaving his hand in mine, I am afraid, my dearie, that I must have shocked you by all the wicked things I have been saying about the dead and such like for weeks past, but I did not mean them, and I want you to remember that when I'm gone, we odd folks that be dabbed, and with one foot about the don't altogether like to think of it, and we don't want to feel of it. And that's why I took to making light of it, so that I cheer up my own heart a bit. But Lord love ye, miss, I ain't afraid of dying, not a bit. Only I don't want to die if I can help it. My time must be nigh at hand now, for I be odd and 100 years is too much for any man to expect, and so nigh it is that man is already within. You see, I can get out of the habit of coughing about it all once the chats will wag as they be used to. Some day soon the angel of death will sound his trumpet for me. But don't you go all greet my dearie, for he saw that I was crying. He should come this very night. I'd not refuse to answer his call, for life be after all only waiting for something else that we're doing, and death be all that can be rightly depended on. But I'm content, for it's coming to me, my dearie, and coming quick. It may be coming while we be looking and wondering. Maybe it is in the wind over the sea that brings with it loss and wreck and sore distress. The sad hearts. Look, look, he cried suddenly. There's something in the wind, and in the host beyond the sounds and looks and tastes and smells like death. In the air I feel it coming, Lord. Make me answer cheerfully when my call comes. He held up his arms devoutly and raised his hat. His mouth moved as though he were praying, and after a few minutes' silence he got, shook hands with me and blessed me, and said good-bye and hobbled off. It all touched me and upset me very much. I was glad when the Coast Guard came along with spy-glasses under his arm. He stopped to talk with me, as he always does, but all the time kept looking at the strange ships. I can't make her out, he said. She's a Russian by looking at her, but she's knocking about in the queerest way. She doesn't know her mind a bit, but seems to see the storm coming, but can't decide whether to run up north in the open or to put it here. Look there again. She is steered mighty strangely, for she doesn't mind the hand on the wheel change about with every puff of wind. We'll hear more of her before this time tomorrow. Posted in Mina Murray's journal from a correspondent, Whitby. One of the greatest and sudden storms on record had just been experienced here, with results both strange and unique. The weather has been somewhat sultry, but not to any degree uncommon in the month of August. Saturday evening was as fine as ever known, and the great body of the holiday makers laid out yesterday for visits to Mulgrave Woods, Robin Hood's Bay, Rigmill, Brunswick, Stadlis, and the various trips in the neighborhood of Whitby. The steamers Emma and Scarborough made trips up and down the coast, and there was an unusual amount of tripping both to and fro Whitby. The day was unusually fine till afternoon, with some of the gossip who frequent the East Cliff churchyard and from the commanding eminence watch the wide sweep of the sea visible to the north and east, called attention to a sudden show of mares high in the sky in the northwest. The wind was then blowing from the southwest in the mild degree which in barometric language is ranked number 2. Light breeze. The Coast Guard on duty at once made report, and one old fisherman was for more than a half a century has kept watch on weather signs from the East Cliff, foretold in the emphatic manner the coming of the sudden storm. The approach of the sunset was so beautiful, so grand in the masses of splendidly colored clouds, that there was quite an assemblage of walk along the cliff in the old churchyard to enjoy the beauty. Before the sun dripped, the black mass of Kettleness, standing boldly athwart the western sky in its downward way, was marked by a myriad of clouds of every sunset color, flame, purple, pink, green, violet, and all the time tints of gold, and with her here and there masses not large, but of seemingly absolute blackness in all sorts of shapes, as well as outline of the colossal silhouettes. The experience was not lost on the painters, and the doubtless some of the sketches of the prelude to the great storm will grace the RA and RI walls in May next. More than once, Captain made his mind that that his cobble or his mule, as the term the different classes of boats, would remain in the harbor till the storm had passed. The wind fell away entirely during the evening, and at midnight there was a dead calm, a sultry heat, and the prevailing intensity which on the approach of thunder affects a person of a sensitive nature. There were a few lights in sight at the sea, for even the coasting steamers, which usually hugged the shore so closely, kept well to seaward, and but few fishing boats were in sight. The only sail noticeable was a foreign schooner with all the sails set, which was seemingly going westward. The foolhardiness or ignorance of the officers with a pro-life theme from comment while she remained in sight, and efforts were made to signal her and reduce sail in the face of her danger. Before the night shut down, she was seen with sails idly flapping as she gently rolled on an indulging swell of the sea, as idle as a painted ship upon a painted ocean. Shortly before 10 o'clock, the stillness of the air grew quite oppressive, and the silence was so marked that the bleating of the sheep inland or the barking of a dog in town was distantly heard, and the band on the pier with its lively French air was like a discord in the great harmony of nature's silence. A little after midnight came the strange sound from over the sea, and high overhead the air began to carry a strange faint howling, booming. Then, without warning, the tempest broke with a rapidity with at the time seemed incredible. Even afterwards, it is impossible to realize the whole aspect of nature at once becoming convulsed. The waves rose in a growing fury, each overtopping its fellow, till in a very few minutes the lastly glassy sea was like roaring in a devouring monster. White crest waves beat madly on the level sands and rushed up the shelving cliffs. Others broke over the pier, and with the spume swept the lanthorns of the lighthouse, which rise from the end of either pier of Whitby Harbor. The wind roared like thunder and blew with such force that it was with difficulty that even strong men kept their feet or clung with the grim clasp to the iron stanchions. It was found necessary to clear the entire piers from the mass of onlookers, or else the fatalities of the night would have been increased manifold. To add to the difficult and danger of the time, masses of sea fog came drifting inland, white, wet clouds which swept by in ghostly fashion, so dank and damp and cold that it needed but little effort of imagination to think that the spirits of those lost at sea were touching their living brethren with clammy hands of death, and many a one shuddered at the wreaths of sea mist swept by. At times the mist cleared, and the sea for some distance could be seen in the glare of lighting, and which now came thick and fast, followed by sudden peals of thunder that the whole sky overheard seemed trembling under the shock of the footsteps of the storm. Some of the scenes that thus revealed were of immensible grandeur and absorbing interest. The sea running mountains high through skyward, with each wave mighty masses of white foam, which the tempest seemed to snatch at and whirl away into space. Here and there a fishing boat with a rag of sail running madly for shelter before blast. Now and again the white wings of the storm tossed seabird. On the summit of the east cliff the new searchlight was ready for experiment, but had not yet been tried. The officers in charge of it got it into working order, and the pauses of the inrushing mist swept with its surface of the sea. Once or twice its services were was most effective, and when a fishing boat with a gunwale under water rushed into harbor, able by the guidance of the sheltering light to avoid danger of dashing against the piers, as each boat achieved the safety of the port, there was a shout of joy from the masses of people on shore, a shout for which a moment seemed to cleave the gale, and was then swept away in the rush. Before long the searchlight discovered some distance away a schooner with all the sails set, apparently the same vessel which had been noticed earlier in the evening. The wind had by that this time backed to the east, and there was a shudder among the watchers on the cliff as they realized terrible danger in which she was. Between her and the port lay a great flat reef on which so many good ships have from time to time suffered, and with the wind blowing from its present quarter, it would be quite impossible that they should fetch the entrance of the harbor. It was now nearly the hour of high tide, but the waves were so great that in their troughs the shallows of the shore were almost visible, and the schooner, with all sails set, was rushing with such speed that, in the words of one old salt, she must fetch up somewhere, if it was only in hell. Then came another rush of sea fog greater than any hitherto, a mass of dank mist which seemed to close all things of gray pale, and left available to men only the organ of healing for the roar of the tempest and the crash of the thunder and the booming of the mighty billows came through the dump, oblivion even louder than before. The rays of the searchlight were kept fixed in the harbor mouth against the east pier, where the shock was expected, and men waited breathlessly. The wind suddenly shifted in the northeast, and the remnant of the sea fog melted in the blast. Then, between the piers, leaping from wave to wave as it rushed headlong speed, swept the strange schooner before the blast with all its sails set, and gained the safety of the harbor. The searchlight followed her, and the shudder ran through all who saw her, for lashed to the helm was a corpse, with a drooping head, which swung horribly to and fro at each motion of the ship. No other form could be seen on the deck at all. A great awe came on, and they all realized that the ship as if by miracle had found the harbor, unsteered, save by the hand of a dead man. However, all that took place more quickly than it takes to write these words. The schooner paused not, but rushing across the harbor, pitched herself on the accumulation of the sand and gravel, washed by the many tides and many storms, into the southeast corner of the pier, jutting under the east cliff, known as locally as Tate Hill Pier. Tate Hill Pier. There was, of course, considerable concussion as the vessel drove up the sand heap. Every spar, rope, and stay was strained, and some of the top hammer came crashing down. But strangest of all, the very instant the shore touched, an immense dog sprang up on the deck from below, as if shot up by the concussion, and running forward, jumping from bow on the sand, making straight for the steep cliff where the churchyard hangs over the laneway to the east pier so steeply that some of the flat tombstones, or through stones as they call them in Whitby, actually project over where the sustaining cliff had fallen away. It disappeared in the darkness, which seems intensified just beyond the focus of the searchlight. It so happened that there was no one at this moment on Tate Hill Pier, as those whose houses are close proximity were either in bed or were out on the heights above.